In the barren desert plateau of southern Peru lie lines etched into the earth. Spanning hundreds of square kilometers, they're not roads, they're not walls, they're images, animals, shapes, spirals, straight lines, so vast they can only be seen from above. This is the Nazca Lines, one of mankind's greatest enigmas. First, let's get a lay of the land. The Nazca Desert is a coastal plateau situated between the towns of Nazca and Palpa in southern Peru. Over 100 years ago, local people must have known of some lines for centuries. But the full scope was first noticed from the air in the 1920s. The Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Cespe is credited with seeing some geoglyphs from the hilltops in 1927. But early records, such as by Pedro Chiesa de Leon in 1547, mention signs on the desert. The Nazca Lines occupy an area of about 500 square kilometers and contain some 13,000 lines and 700 shapes. The Nazca people began making these lines around 500 BCE and continued doing so up until 500 CE, which means that this artistic production lasted over 1500 years. Most of the forms are geometric patterns, though there are also plants, animals, and humanoid figures. Some lines are straight and measure several kilometers long. Other shapes like the hummingbird, monkey, spider, and condor stretch more than 100 meters across. And some of the animal figures appear to be stylized versions of real creatures. The monkey, for example, has a long tail and appears to be holding a banana. But how did these simple lines become giant works of art? Here's what archaeologists think happened. The Nazca people built the lines by removing the top layer of reddish stones, exposing the lighter soil beneath. They used stakes and ropes to maintain straight lines and precise angles. And because rain is extremely rare in Nazca, these lines have survived for centuries, so that's how they made it. But why did they make it? The Nazca people left behind no written records, so their reasons for creating the lines remain unknown. But scholars have come up with plenty of theories. The most enduring idea is that the Nazca Lines were used for astronomical purposes. One of the earliest proponents of this idea was the American astronomer Paul Kosok, who first suggested the alignment of the lines with certain stars and solstices. German archaeologist Maria Reiche devoted much of her life to studying the lines, becoming known as the Lady of the Lines. Reiche spent decades painstakingly measuring and mapping the site. She believed that the Nazca people created the lines to function as a gigantic astronomical calendar. According to her research, some of the lines may have represented constellations, while others marked significant dates like the winter solstice, when the sun shone directly over the hummingbird figure. Reiche's work has been influential, but many other scholars disagree with her interpretation. For one thing, it's difficult to prove that the Nazca people had any understanding of astronomy. Additionally, many of these supposed alignments have been challenged as coincidental rather than intentional. For instance, the so-called astronomical observatory at Nazca contains 3 sets of lines converging at a central point. However, the convergence of lines does not coincide with the rising sun at the winter solstice as Reiche proposed. Instead, it's just a few degrees off. If the Nazca people were actually using this as a calendar, it seems likely that they would have aligned it more accurately. Likewise, Reiche suggested that the double helix design of the Nazca Lines could represent DNA. But it turns out that the shape was actually inspired by a nearby mountain range. Another problem with the astronomical theory is that the Nazca Lines cover such a large area that you can basically find whatever alignment you want if you try hard enough. This concern was echoed by Tom Serro, an archaeologist and director of the Institute of Andean Studies. He explained that we could all decide that every line is an astronomical clock if we wanted to. But scientists have to keep in mind that coincidence can play a big role too. For example, several of the lines point towards the sea. Could they be related to fishing or navigation? Maybe. But they could also simply be pointing to mountains across the horizon. As you can see, the astronomical theory is intriguing but ultimately unprovable. Fortunately, we don't need to invoke aliens or ancient astronauts to explain the Nazca Lines. There's another fascinating and much more plausible theory, one that focuses on water. Scholars like archaeologist Elizabeth P. Wing and historian of science J. Daniel Keyes propose that the Nazca Lines served ritual purposes related to water and fertility. The Nazca Desert receives less than 1 inch of rain per year, and much of the surrounding land is arid. So it makes sense that the Nazca people would have wanted to invoke rainfall for agricultural purposes. After all, they relied on farming in the nearby valleys, where the lines are plainly visible from the ground. However, it's possible that their purpose was to connect the people to a supernatural realm. Some of the lines converge on water sources, such as springs, rivers, or underground aquifers. These may have been important resources for the Nazca people, and they may have considered them sacred. In fact, the Nazca people built many of their settlements along waterways, which probably helped them sustain a large population. But there is still a lot that we don't know about the Nazca Lines and the people who created them. A recent discovery adds another wrinkle to our understanding of the site. In 2023, an international team of researchers used drones and artificial intelligence to analyze high-resolution aerial images of the Nazca Lines. They discovered 303 previously unknown geoglyphs, including 143 human figures, 78 animals, and 82 geometric shapes. This finding suggests that the network of lines is even more complex than previously thought. Furthermore, the sheer number of figures indicates that the Nazca people were deeply invested in creating these works of art. One of the newly identified animal figures is particularly interesting. It appears to be a stylized version of a woolly monkey, which is a species found in the nearby mountains. The discovery of this and other animal figures suggests that the Nazca people may have had a deep connection to the natural world. They may have viewed the animals as sacred or believed that they had spiritual significance. Another possibility is that the Nazca Lines were part of a larger system of communication. For example, some of the lines appear to lead to other sites of interest, such as ceremonial centers or burial grounds. This could indicate that the lines served as a way of directing people to these locations. It's also possible that the lines were part of a more extensive road system, which would have been used for both practical and religious purposes. There's still a lot of work to do, but this recent discovery adds an exciting new dimension to our understanding of the Nazca Lines. It reminds us that there is still so much to learn about this enigmatic site and the people who created it. For now, we may never know for sure why the Nazca people built the lines, but we can appreciate their beauty and mystery. From the air, they resemble enormous pieces of a giant puzzle, each line and shape contributing to the overall design. What do you think the Nazca Lines mean? Let me know in the comments below. First, a recap. Located in the arid southern coast of Peru, the Nazca Lines consist of thousands of figures etched onto the desert sands. Created between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nazca people, these figures range from simple lines and geometric shapes to complex animal and plant motifs. Some are just feet wide, while others span over 300 feet. As you might have noticed, there's a lot of animals here. These include local wildlife like monkeys, vicuñas, and lizards, plus fantastic beasts like this two-headed bird. It's worth noting that many of these creatures are mythical or symbolic rather than purely naturalistic. A key example is the famed hummingbird, one of the most widespread motifs across the Nazca Lines, often depicted with outstretched wings and a long beak. To the Nazca and earlier Paracas peoples, the hummingbird symbolized fertility, a powerful link to their world and beyond. Now let's talk about the big theories. The most sensational theories propose that the Nazca Lines were created or guided by extraterrestrials. Possibilities range from landing strips for alien spacecraft to messages etched into the earth to impress or communicate with the sky gods. The idea that aliens had a hand in creating the Nazca Lines was popularized by Swiss author Erich von Däniken in his 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods. In it, he argues that the Nazca Lines are evidence of extraterrestrial contact during ancient times, claiming that they are too precise and large-scale to have been created without advanced technology. He proposes that the straight lines could be used as landing strips for spaceships, while the animal figures represent attempts to communicate with extraterrestrials. While lacking concrete evidence, von Däniken's theory sparked public imagination and launched the Nazca Lines into international spotlight. More fringe claims even point to alien mummies found nearby, which are deeply controversial and not accepted by mainstream science. These theories are highly debated and rejected by the majority of archaeologists and experts who attribute the Nazca Lines to the ingenuity and communal effort of the indigenous people. Then again, in recent years, new discoveries and modern research methods have added layers of complexity to the mystery. Thanks to the help of AI and drones, researchers have been able to uncover secrets hidden from plain sight. In 2017, a team led by Yamagata University and IBM Research Japan used a dense image matching algorithm to identify previously invisible patterns. They discovered small relief-type geoglyphs, including abstract humanoids, humanoid busts, and animals, which were likely missed in previous surveys due to their size or location. The newly identified figures suggest that the Nazca Lines ain't static, but evolved over time with each new figure added to the landscape. Further research has shown that the lines and figures were created and modified in distinct phases, indicating an ongoing process of cultural expression rather than a single monumental project. Other findings have challenged traditional interpretations of the lines as purely religious or ceremonial in nature. For instance, a paper published in 2019 proposed that some of the lines acted as ancient communication pathways between settlements. Researchers suggested that the lines could have been used to convey messages visually across the arid landscape. This theory is supported by the alignment of certain lines with important sites such as ceremonial complexes or community buildings. While not directly related to the extraterrestrial theories, these alternative interpretations highlight the complexity of the Nazca Lines and invite us to consider their multifaceted role in ancient Peruvian culture. One fascinating but still controversial hypothesis put forward by archaeologist Emil Calisi suggests that a series of solar eclipses may have inspired some of the lines. Calisi noted that several of the Nazca figures resemble celestial bodies like the moon and stars, and that these representations align with significant astronomical events, specifically solar eclipses. According to Calisi, the ancient people may have interpreted these eclipses as omens or messages from the gods, and they created the lines to commemorate or respond to these cosmic occurrences. While intriguing, this theory remains speculative, and further research is needed to establish any concrete links between the Nazca Lines and ancient astronomical observations. But regardless of their exact purpose, the Nazca Lines stand as a testament to human creativity and the desire to connect with the cosmos. Let's now shift gears from the realm of speculation to the cultural and historical context of the Nazca Lines. To the Nazca and earlier Paracas peoples, the lines held deep cultural and spiritual significance, serving as a form of communication and offerings to the deities they worshipped. The Nazca worshipped a pantheon of gods and goddesses, many of whom resided in the sky. The lines were believed to serve as visible offerings to these celestial deities, allowing the Nazca to demonstrate their devotion and seek divine favor. To truly appreciate the cultural meaning behind the Nazca Lines, it helps to understand the worldview of the Nazca people. They held a deep reverence for nature and saw spirits and deities present in all natural phenomena. Their worldview was heavily influenced by the arid environment of the Peruvian coast, where water was scarce and unpredictable, shaping their beliefs and practices. The Nazca Lines, therefore, can be seen as part of a larger system of beliefs and rituals aimed at harmonizing with the natural world and ensuring survival in a challenging environment. Now, you might be wondering, why do we find so many animals among the Nazca Lines? Each creature holds a unique place in the mythology and daily life of the Nazca people. For instance, the hummingbird, with its ability to hover and mimic other birds, was seen as a messenger of the gods. Spider, with its skill in weaving, symbolized the creation of rain and fertility. By depicting these animals in the Nazca Lines, the Nazca were not only paying homage to the creatures themselves, but also to the spiritual and practical roles they played in human life. It's important to note that the meaning and significance of the Nazca Lines were not static but evolved over time. As the Nazca culture developed and interacted with other civilizations, their beliefs and practices changed, and the lines reflect this evolution. The lines also played a role in the daily lives of the Nazca people, serving as boundaries for agricultural fields or as markers for important places like burial grounds. They were integral to the social fabric of the Nazca society, uniting the community in their creation and maintenance. Unfortunately, many of these ancient lines have been damaged over the centuries. Human activity, road construction, and erosion have all taken a toll on the delicate geoglyphs. Nevertheless, efforts are underway to preserve and restore these valuable artifacts. In 1994, the Nazca Lines were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in an attempt to protect them from further damage and raise awareness of their importance. Today, tourism is a major driver of economic activity in the region, but it also poses a threat to the integrity of the Nazca Lines. The influx of visitors requires careful management to balance economic benefits with the need for preservation. The use of drones and remote sensing technologies in both tourism and scientific research has brought new challenges and ethical considerations. While these tools have allowed for incredible discoveries and a deeper understanding of the Nazca Lines, they also raise questions about privacy, accessibility, and the impact on the sacredness of the site. Despite the challenges, efforts continue to preserve and restore the Nazca Lines. Drawing upon traditional knowledge and modern techniques, archaeologists and local communities work together to stabilize eroding lines, remove invasive vegetation, and educate visitors about the cultural significance of the site. In recent years, the discovery of new lines and figures through AI-assisted mapping has added a sense of urgency and excitement to the field of Nazca studies. These newfound geoglyphs provide fresh insights into the culture and practices of the Nazca people and raise new questions about their beliefs and way of life. The continuous flow of new discoveries ensures that the Nazca Lines remain a captivating subject of research and exploration. But when it comes to deciphering their meaning and purpose, we must acknowledge that some mysteries are meant to remain just that, unsolved. The Nazca Lines are a reminder that human creativity knows no bounds, and that our ancestors were capable of undertaking projects of immense scale and ambition. They tell us that purpose, belief, and imagination can create wonders that challenge time and understanding. And maybe the greatest lesson of all, some messages are meant not just for humans, but for the sky. We may never fully understand the Nazca Lines, but they push us to question, explore, and dream. They challenge us to think beyond our everyday lives and consider the boundless potential of the human spirit. The Nazca people, through their creation, have left us with a legacy that transcends time and invites us to marvel at the mysteries of our world and our place within it. We hope you enjoyed this journey back to Nazca. If you liked this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We've got more amazing stories coming up, so hit the notification bell to stay updated. Thanks for watching. See you next time.